since...
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, there it goes. I've been with Square since 2021, just right after the pandemic. Um, I am calling in today from sunny Florida, and yep, I can confirm that's what it looks like outside my window, minus the ocean and the beach. I live in Central Florida. I'm not from Florida, but that's where I am now. Um, and just tell you a little bit about what I do at Square. These are some of the clients that I work with. Beyond Benign is an international green chemistry education group. It's a lot of faculty and teachers who get together and share lesson plans and talk about how to improve education around chemistry. I'll be honest, once they get past that, I don't really know what they're talking about anymore. I don't read their lesson plans that closely. I'm just there for the technical part of it. The International Mountain Bicycling Association, they are a member-driven organization that promotes trail development for mountain biking, hiking all over. And the U.S. Chess Federation, which is also a membership-driven organization. U.S. Chess is the governing body of chess here in the United States. So when you see the international tournaments, the people who are there representing the United States are members of the U.S. Chess Federation. I also have a couple of my colleagues on the call right now. Brian, he talked a while ago, and Sarah also is here. I won't force them to jump on unless they want to talk, but they are kind of here to help just in case we get stuck on something. Plus, there's no way I could answer every possible question that you lovely people would come up with. I have no doubt about it. Yeah. So let's go ahead and move on. The topic of today is understanding CiviCRM's administrative functions. So we're going to talk about three main topics today. We're going to talk about CMS users versus CiviCRM contacts. We're going to talk about controlling permissions. So that's who can do what on your website. And we're going to talk about managing duplicate contacts. At any time, I believe we have the message question system up at any time if you want to post a question in there. Or if I just say something that just really seems to be confusing, I don't mind you jumping in there and saying something. So start really at the beginning, and I know that some of you, certainly from the conversation we were having earlier, have a lot of experience and will know a lot of this information. But every once in a while, it surprises me people who manage websites who don't know some of this. So I think it's always really good that we just start from the beginning and make sure that we're all speaking the same language. Now, at Square, we mostly work in Drupal and WordPress systems with CiviCRM. So I will talk about Drupal and WordPress specifically. And in my examples, I'll be using Drupal primarily because I'm a very comfortable Drupal site builder more so than WordPress. But the concepts that we're going to talk about are going to be pretty much the same across these platforms, especially when it comes to CiviCRM. So if anyone here is not familiar, both Drupal and WordPress are open source web platforms that can be used to build websites. The Drupal and WordPress is really the front end of your website, and they manage content. That's why we call them content management systems, CMS for short. And that content could be blogs, forums, images, text, and quite a bit more. Your CMS is also where we hold the users. So when we talk about the difference between a user and a contact, when we're talking about users, we are talking about a CMS user. So what is a user? Well, a user is anyone who visits your website. This could be an anonymous user, someone who is just surfing the web and finds your website and pokes around for a while. This could be an authenticated user. An authenticated user, by definition, is someone who logs in. So they have some sort of login credentials. And it could be your trusted users. Trusted users are probably most, if not everyone, on this Zoom right now, in that you have a login, making you an authenticated user, but you also have some sort of elevated permissions that allow you to do or manage content or to do something on your website. Generally, with an anonymous user, the only thing that your website knows about that user is their IP address. For authenticated users, the bare minimum is typically going to be an email address, but you could have more, or that could be all that your website knows. Out of the box, Drupal is only going to ask for an email address and a user name, which usually is the email address initially. And for trusted users, that's when you're going to start adding permissions and roles. CiviCRM is a constituent relationship management system. And CiviCRM is kind of the backside of your website. It's the part of your website that your users don't usually see. Now, CiviCRM is a very powerful system. It includes managing contacts, events, contributions, memberships, mailings, and quite a bit more. If you're not familiar with using Civi, it can at first be very overwhelming. It's easy to get lost in it. But once you get used to it and you get to learning the system, it can do a lot for you. So what are contacts? A contact in CiviCRM out of the box includes individuals, organizations, or households. You can create more contact types, but these come pretty standard right out of the box, and it's what a lot of organizations use. In those contact records, we'll have a name, usually first and last name. We have greeting fields, contact method, which includes phone numbers, websites, email addresses, addresses, communication preferences. You can also create custom fields that you can add in CiviCRM on a contact record. You could have a custom field for the person's favorite color or for any dietary restrictions. Civi also allows for relationships, which is a very powerful tool. For example, out of the box, you can have a relationship between spouses so that when you go to a contact record of one person, you can see that they are connected to another person's contact record, that it's their spouse or their child, also an employer, and you can create additional ones. I find this to be a very useful tool in a lot of sites. So here we have an example of a pretty simple contact record. This is on a test site that I was playing with last night. So this is, you'll see Alex Morningside come up a few more times. You can see some of the fields. I'm not going to get into any of the tabs that are on the left, but just out of the box, because has no customization done to it, you can see the employer, job title, nickname. You can see all the other fields that we had mentioned earlier, including gender, date of birth, and age. I want to really kind of highlight there the top box on the right that has tags at the top. And you'll see it says contact type. So you can see that this is an individual contact. That next line, contact ID and user ID, I think is very important to highlight. The contact ID refers to the CiviCRM contact ID. So this is the contact ID 49 in CiviCRM. The 20 you see there is the user ID. In this case, this Civi site where this contact record lives is a Drupal site. So that 20 is the Drupal user ID. You'll also note that it is blue. It is a link. If you click on it, it will take you to Drupal so that you can see the Drupal user account. Something to note, if a contact does not have a Drupal or a CMS user ID, there won't be a second number. You'll only have the first number and not that second 20. There won't be a link there. This is something that can come in handy when you're trying to sort out what's going on with a contact record. Who does this contact record belong to? How did this contract record get created? So users versus contacts. As I said earlier, CMS users can be anyone who is interacting with your website. That could be an anonymous user. It could be somebody who is logged in. They do not have to be logged in to be considered a user, but once they are logged in, you're going to have some information about them. Users that log in can be granted roles that provide additional permissions, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then we have CiviCRM contacts. As we said earlier, these can be individuals, organizations, or households out of the box. You can also create other contact types. They can contain a lot of information about the contact, including custom fields that you can create in Civi. And the important thing there is that last one, and that is that a contact is not necessarily someone who has interacted with your website. You, as an administrator, assuming you're an administrator, can go into Civi and create contacts without creating a user ID in the CMS system. You can also import contacts. So, for example, if you had a spreadsheet of contacts that you had from another source, you can import that into CiviCRM and create all of those contacts without creating a user ID to your website. This can be useful for a number of reasons. And we see this a lot on sites where they will bring in a lot of contact records so that they know who these people are. For example, you may want to know who is the president of this organization that your nonprofit does work with. But that president of that organization or CEO may never go to the website and have a reason to log in. But that might be somebody who you want to have in there so that then you can connect their contact record to that organization's contact record. It also will allow you to email that person from your Civi system, as an example. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about permissions. For the purpose of today's topic, we're going to talk about two types of permissions. The first one is going to be your CMS permissions. This is going to be granted through your CMS. As I mentioned earlier, we're primarily talking about Drupal and WordPress. The examples I will use will be Drupal, so I have the little Drupal logo there. But these permissions can be anything from creating content to editing content, deleting it, creating other user accounts, depending on what level of permissions that you want to provide to the user. Then in Civi, we have what are called ACLs, Access Control List. ACLs can be defined by groups in a contact and can be set on custom fields so that you can control who in Civi, who has access to Civi and can see what information can they view or edit or create or delete information. This can be really important as opposed to giving a user access to all of your CiviCRM contacts. Maybe you just want them to have access to some of your CiviCRM contacts. And in that case, ACLs is a way to do that. So when we talk about the CMS, so we're back talking about Drupal here for a minute. When we talk about permissions, as I said earlier, permissions are defined by roles. So in this case, you can see my example earlier was Alex Morningside. And you see that she is active. And at the bottom, she only has one role, authenticated user. She's not a content editor. She is not an administrator. So something to note, and I'll show this, go ahead and switch over, is that anyone who has a content editor role in this case is also an authenticated user. So anyone who logs into the site, in Drupal's case, is an authenticated user. That's the role for anyone who logs in. But when you have roles, you can have multiple roles. And you can create a lot of different types of roles, give each role various permissions, and you can give users multiple roles. And something to keep in mind is those roles are additive. What that means is if you have a role that can edit content, and then you have a different role that can delete content, if you give both of those roles to the same user, that user gets both permissions to edit and delete content. They don't subtract, they don't cancel out, and it's not a hierarchy of the two roles. And when we talk about permissions in the CMS, this is looking again at a Drupal CMS. And you can see a list of some of the roles. In this case, these are CiviCRM roles. So you can see I have, well, I'm sitting here using my mouse as if y'all can see what I'm doing with my mouse. You can see across the top that we have our different roles, the anonymous user, authenticated user, content editor, administrator. And then you can see on the left, we have the different permissions of those users. And you can see the check marks of which ones do they have. So in the very first row there, it's delete contacts. And in this case, a content editor has that checked, meaning a content editor can delete contacts. But an authenticated user does not have that permission checked, so the authenticated user cannot do that. Something else to note is the administrator has every box checked. So anytime you're in a Drupal system, for example, when you go in, you'll see an administrator can do anything and everything on the site. This is a reason to try to limit the number of administrators that you have on the site. Something else to note is if you look down to towards the bottom, you'll see CiviCRM edit my contact. And you'll see that the authenticated user box is checked. Because a content editor is an authenticated user, because anyone who can log in is an authenticated user, the content editor therefore also has that permission. And it's grayed out because you can't take that permission away from the content editor because you gave it to the authenticated user. Now, if I created another, say, a website manager role that I stuck in there, the website editor role could have permissions that the content editor does not, and vice versa. And that's where we talk about how you can add multiple roles together and kind of stack them up if you wanted to with a user. I feel like I'm just zipping along here, so please slow me down if I'm going too quickly. So we're going to talk about CiviCRM ACLs for a minute. And I just I took this screenshot because I know that sometimes in Civi the menu can be a little overwhelming and you kind of go along and go, where was that thing again? Now this one's pretty quick to find, but just to note, if you are ever in Civi and you can't find something, there is a little Civi search there, and if you type in permissions, it would show you where that is and will tell you how to get there quicker, or as quickly as you could get here. But that can come in handy when you get into some of the longer menu items. There are some of the longer drop downs. But when we're talking about the access controls, we're going to go to users and permissions and then permission access control. When we get there, the first screen that we're going to see is this screen with the roles option. So you can manage roles, assign users to the CiviCRM ACL roles, and manage ACLs. So I'm going to kind of walk through an example of how you can use the ACL roles to control what a user can and cannot see outside of the administrator. And so this is where we would start. We would start here. And we're going to go into manage roles, and we are going to have to add an ACL role. Now, I wasn't smart and I took this screen and I forgot to take this screenshot before I added the ACL role. So the example role that we're going to be using today is that bottom one, ships crew. The others were already the default CiviCRM roles that are there. But when I did click add ACL role, I got this screen right here. This is what you would see, where you need to give it a label. The value is already in there, and there's also an order, so you don't have to go in and do anything there. You do want it to be enabled at the checkbox at the bottom. And when I was reviewing this morning before we started, I kind of had to give myself a little smack on the hand because I didn't put anything in the description. And I'm a big fan of when you do this work, put something in the description so that others who come behind you know what you were doing. This is my demo site, so I know what it is, so I can kind of get away with it. But I should have put something in the description, and I really do encourage everyone to put something in the description. So in this case, we would have added the role, we would have clicked save, and then we would have gone back to the previous screen, and we're going to need to assign users to the CiviCRM roles. Again, I had done it before I took a screenshot, but you would click Add Role Assignment, and you would come to this screen. Now, this screen is pretty simple. We selected first the role that we had just created, ship's crew, and then we're going to select a group. In this case, my group is called the Ironic Gentleman. This is a group that I had made already, but I wanted to just show you real quick because there are a couple important things to making the group. Here are the group settings. And the important thing about this is that the group type is access control. If it's not access control, this won't work. The second thing is that it cannot be a smart group. If you're familiar with smart groups, it's got to be a regular CiviCRM group. And I just want to show you also, and I'm these are screenshots, but I do have the site up if anybody needs me to prove this is honestly what it looks like. It's just it would take longer for me to go through the site and show you all of this. That this is the group, the Ironic Gentleman. You can see it there at the top. And you can see there are only 2 users in this group, the 2 that I showed you earlier, Alex and Cora. Brian or Sarah, do you see a raised hand? There, I see a. Oh, Mariska, is that you?
I just had a question concerning the smart group. Is that I think in French it's like dynamic group, so like an automated
Yes,
group. That's
that's
what
it.
smart group is.
Yes, ma'am, that is it.
Thanks.
Exactly. So it's when you can go into an advanced search, you can set up the rules of what you're looking for. So for example, on most of my client sites, I have a rule that looks for Mark Armstrong, the percentage symbol at Square, because you can use because of Mark.Armstrong, because I use Mark.Armstrong plus the name of my test user. So by doing that percentage sign, that's the variable, and then I can save that as a smart group. So yes, dynamic group, I'm sure is exactly the same thing. And then when you do, every time I create a new test user, it'll show up in there, which helps to keep me honest about my test users, so to speak, so that I don't accidentally create a bunch of test users and gum up the works with stuff that doesn't need to be there. And in fact, if you look here, you see that the email on both of these starts with Mark.Armstrong. It's Mark.Armstrong plus Cora and Mark.Armstrong plus Alex. And but a smart group wouldn't work here. But yes, ma'am, that is exactly what you're describing. And I see that someone, Neil, linked to the information of the smart group. Yeah, that's it. Think I was actually looking at that just yesterday going, really, guys, we still can't do that? Okay, fine. So this is my Ironic Gentleman smart group. I have 2 users. I mean, a smart group, my access control group. I got distracted there on the smart group talk. And I've got 2 users in it. That's going to be important later. So now we're going to go back and we are going to add our ACL. So we're going to add the actual rule that we're going to use. And in this case, my ship's crew is going to use the role ship's crew. I know I'm really getting inventive with those names, aren't I? These users in the ship's crew are going to be able to view a group of contacts. The mode is allow, as opposed to denying them the ability to see these users. I had in my head kind of an example I thought of earlier of when you would deny a group. So then I kind of lost it. But if you had a group of special users, special contacts over here, no, I got it. I have worked with this situation before, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. But some organizations, international organizations, they work with translators in different parts of the world. And if they were in your contact, in your CiviCRM as contacts, those translators, but you did not want the average person, the average user to be able to see those particular contacts, you might deny that particular group of those translators. And I'll let all of you imagine from there what I'm talking about and the scenarios that it can be. But yes, that's the example. I did remember it. But in this case, we're going to allow, and we're going to allow the group, the ironic gentleman, which we just saw. So on this next screen, this is what I see as a full admin when I go into CiviCRM and I just search for all contacts. Now, this is the first screen. There was a pager at the bottom. Figured you all didn't need to see that. You got the idea of it's a lot of names. You can see Brian, who was talking earlier, is in that list. You can also see Cora is in that list. I think is Alex. No, Alex isn't in that list. We didn't get that far alphabetically. That's what I see when I do it. This is what Cora sees when she does it. I logged in as Cora, did the exact same search, and because Cora is in that access group, these are the only users that she sees because she does not have permissions to see all contacts. She only has permissions through that access control group to see the users who are in that group. Okay. All right. So far, so good. We got one more topic to cover. We're going to talk about deduping and merging next. So what are we talking about when we talk about deduping? Well, we're talking about duplicate contacts. And I know that for some people, this is how they feel when they get into their system and they see 10 and 20 duplicate contacts. And one of the questions is, Mariska, were you gesturing that that's how you feel? Or yeah, okay. I know I felt that way myself a few times when I'm like, why? So one of the questions is, how do these duplicate contacts get created? I get this question from people who are relatively clients who are somewhat new to Civi and figuring it out. So for one thing to know is that with a Drupal Civi system, if your user creates a Drupal user account through the standard interface, that creates a Civi contact record when they do it. So this also opens up the door to a slight problem, and that is that users forget they have a user account, so they'll go create another one and just use a different email address. And that can create a duplicate contact record right there. But the second part of this is just out of the box, if you as an admin go in and create a contact in Civi and you don't see that one already exists, if you didn't search, if your system wasn't set up to tell you if you typed the name differently, if you misspelled something, you could create a duplicate contact that way. As an administrator, you can go in and create a whole bunch of contacts and the system will let you do it. And then the third way is when you import. And import can also create a lot of duplicate contacts. And once you get a bunch of duplicate contacts in there, especially over years, you have a buildup of junk that you just got to get rid of. And that's where deduping and merging comes in. So again, this one's also not that hard to find, but I showed it anyhow. If you go down to contacts there next to the bottom, and at least in my system, you will find and merge duplicate contacts. Pretty straightforward and easy to find. This time I did remember to take the screenshot first, because when you go there, you're going to see this. And I got to move some of y'all. I got to move some of this. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And you can see that there are 3 categories of our contacts. We have our individual rules, our household rules, and our organization rules. And this is what is in Civi out of the box. I did not create any of these. I didn't do anything with any of them. And one of the things that always makes me pause and think, and then half the time go to Civi to look it up and make sure that I remember correctly, because I don't need to remember this most of the time, is what the heck is supervised and unsupervised, right? So if you go to Civi, Civi does explain it to you, but here's kind of, and I'm one of my colleagues might jump in here any second now, but it's a pretty good explanation. So the unsupervised rule is for when users are signing up for an event or signing up for a membership or making a contribution. And part of that is asking them to register at the same time. And Civi will say, hey, you already exist in the system. The supervised role is what happens if you go in through the Civi, into Civi and try to add a contact. And Civi will alert you if it sees that this matches someone that already exists based on those rules. A general rule is what we're going to use to search for duplicate contacts and then to merge them. And you can create these roles. You can make them as fancy as you want. You can make them as complicated as you want, but whatever serves your purpose. Just keep in mind that I have a very common first and last name. So using me as a great example, where I grew up, there was another Mark Armstrong less than an hour from me who was born the same year as me and who graduated high school the same year as me. I've already seen my own obituary in the newspaper for the same age as me because I have an extremely common name. Okay. I'm one of those people that's often, and I was asking some of you to make sure I was pronouncing your name correctly. It's because I'm jealous. That's all it is. I sometimes just like, I wish I could have a name like Mariska. You know, it sounds pretty, it's unique, it's a fun name, right? But like me and Neil, we're just like, yep, dime a dozen, right? You know, every other person sometimes it feels like.
At least you get to have keychains at the, tourist spots whenever you travel. I don't.
You are absolutely correct. I can always find mine. That is 100% true. I have no problem finding my name somewhere. But because of that, when you look at these roles, you can see how you couldn't use just first and last name. It just would not work because of names like mine, because you will always find a bunch of us in a system. So what we do before we're going to dedupe and merge, we're going to look for duplicate contacts, is we are going to create a rule that we're going to use. And the rule that I'm using in today's example, I'm using name and address. And this is, as you can see in the second heading there, this is general. So this is not a supervised or unsupervised rule. This is a rule that's only going to be used when I trigger it to do a search. I did not check the reserved box because I might want to change this later just because this is just my demo site. But we're going to look at the user's first name, the user's last name, and the street address. Now, to me, the important thing to understand when creating this is the weight, that far right column. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the length real quick. The length is looking at how many characters are you trying to match to. So it could be if, for example, the length for first name was 3 characters and we did a search, then anybody whose name, like Mariska and I, might show up because we both have MAR as the first 3 letters, right? I didn't use any length on this, but I do want to talk about the weight of it real quick. So the way the weight works is when it does a search, it is only going to look at adding up the weight and does it match that bottom number. So for example, I said first name 5 points, last name 5 points, street address 10 points. So what that means is if it's the same first and last name, so if it's Mark Armstrong and there's 2 of them, that's going to be 5 for the first name, 5 for the last name. That's only going to be 10 points. Because I said that the threshold is 15 points, it's not going to tell me those match. But because I gave street address 10 points, if the street address and the first name match, that's going to be 15 points. It's going to tell me those are possible matches. If the street address and last name match, 15 points, possible match. And if all 3 match, we're going to have 20 points, and it's going to tell me they match. I'm gonna
Can you
pause
repeat,
there.
please, Mark? Please.
Yes,
Because
ma'am. That's why I paused. Just want to make sure. Right.
I don't
So
understand, like, is the weight always 5?
no, ma'am. You set
Okay.
that weight. You could set that weight to 100. Well, I think you could set it for 100. I've never tried that high of a number, to be honest. But you could set that weight to whatever you want.
But I don't understand what the weight is.
Okay.
Because
So,
I understand that length is the character, right? So if we're
right,
looking for a 3-letter name, so you're gonna put a length at 3 for like MAR, right?
right.
But I don't understand the weight.
So the weight is assigning a value to when there's a match. So, let's
Can I,
say that
hi,
my
Mark,
content.
can I say that a little bit different way in case it
Yes,
helps
ma'am.
too?
Hop in there,
It's
Sarah.
it's like it might help if it's like points. It's like you get to pick how many points each of these lines gets, and then you get to say how many points is a in total is a match or like a win. So in this case, you need 15 points altogether, and then if it matches on first name, that counts for 5 points. If it matches on last name, that counts for 5 points. And if it matches on address, that counts for 10 points.
So we're
And it
like
needs to
doing
get
a
15
Venn
together. That's
diagram,
mine.
but like with digits and trying to see like how much it collapsed together to find the contact and like finding the duplicates and merging the contacts, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes, because what you're doing is it's how many points do you want to assign to each of those matches? Okay. So if there were two Mark Armstrongs in the system, but we had different addresses, for example, well, if we do the search because we both have the same first name, that's 5 points. We both have the same last name, that's another 5 points. So that's a total of 10 points. But we don't have the same address. So we didn't reach the threshold of 15 points. So the system's not going to say that we were a match. But if we have the same last name, different first name, same last name, 5 points, and the same address, that's 10 points, that'll be 15 points. And when we hit that 15 points, the system's going to go, maybe this was a match. Does that make sense?
And by match, you mean duplicate.
Potential duplicate. Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Okay. And I see that somebody had asked in the chat about, so if you have a Rob and a Robert at the same address, they'll show up as a match, but at different addresses not, because they only have a match of 5 for the last name. Correct. Well, Rob and Robert would match if we had put a length of 3 in the first name. Because we did not put a length of 3 in the first name, Rob and Robert will not match. Yes, correct. But if we put the length in and the address, then you're absolutely correct. That will work. And I think it might start to click a little bit here as we go just a hair further in, because some of you are right on the exact example of what I was going for when I set this up. So I said earlier that I was smart enough this time to take the screenshot after I did it. So now you can see here that I have my new name and address general rule at the top. And you can also see, because this was one that I created, I can actually delete that rule. It's not there to stay like the other ones are, because Civi put the other ones in there. So when I'm ready to search, because I'm going to do it manually now, I would click Use Rule next to the rule that I want to use. And in this case, we're going to use the first one, the name and address that I was just showing you how it was created. The next screen that's going to come up is going to ask if I want to search just in a select group or if I just want to do all contacts. Most of the time we're doing all contacts. If you were maybe bringing in an import of contacts and you really wanted to kind of scrub that list, that would be a time that you might do a specific group. There's some other times that you could probably come up with, but I wanted to show the screen, even though it's pretty easy to understand. Most of the time when I'm doing this, I'm just doing all context. Oh yeah, no, another really good time that you might want to do is by group is when a system really has a lot of context in it. Because it's got a lot of context, it might take a little bit. So you might then want to just do it by groups at that time. And after I do that, this is the screen that's going to come up. And I wanted to show these examples here. I have at the bottom, you can see it gave me 3 possible matches. I have an Annie Armstrong and a Bob Armstrong. They have the same address. So it said they matched the rules that I gave them. I have an Annie Armstrong and a Robert Armstrong. They live at the same address. So Civi says that could be a match. And then I have a Bob Armstrong and a Robert Armstrong. And I think you can all see where I'm going with this. I have a funny feeling that Bob and Robert are the same character, the same guy, right? Not necessarily, it could be a father and son. We would want to look at date of birth perhaps if we were going in that kind of detail. We're not for this example. I just really wanted to show it. So in this case, I would not look at Annie and Bob or Annie and Robert. I could mark them as not duplicates right here and just be done with them and have them go into the no longer show me that match pile anymore. But I do want to look at Bob and Robert. So in this case, because I have so few, I could just click the link there to merge. If I had several of them, I might go in and check the boxes of the ones I particularly wanted to, and then go in to merge those. At the bottom of this, which I don't show here, is where there's a button to do it. But then after I go to click merge on just the one, Bob and Robert, I would end up at this screen right here. And this screen is showing you where the differences are and where they are the same. In this case, as you can see by the timestamp, I created them one right after the other, so it was just me setting it up. And I have the option here of flipping them. I can say, you know what, I have this backwards. I want to keep Robert, not Bob. Or I want to keep Bob, not Robert. So I can decide which way I want to go. I can also select the boxes that I want to overwrite and leave unchecked the boxes I don't want to overwrite. And then after I do this, what will happen is we will only have one record. It'll be Bob. And Robert will go into our trash. Does that make sense? Does that help? Does that help explain the weights a little bit more, I hope? Go ahead. Go ahead, Mariska.
I don't exactly get how is it merging if we need like to manually overwrite the information, but like when you first started explaining about the duplicates, like you were saying somebody forgot their user, whatever, so sign in with a new um email address, for example. Okay, so maybe I have one profile with Robert that says his company and everything, like a more profound profile, but under Bob there could be like his date of birth that I don't have in the first profile and whatever. So like, why won't it just merge both info when I click on merging, as like I should manually do it myself?
So in a case like that, if you select the mark all at the top, it'll go in and do that. It'll go in and it'll look for anywhere where there's blanks, it'll fill them in. But the reason why you get this option is because frequently you'll find that part of why you have duplicates is there'll be some type of misspelled information, for example. I know that seems silly that people will misspell their own name, but
Yeah, they do.
I can do it. And I have a very easy name, right? It happens. You're just in a hurry and you're just typing. I think I accidentally typed something in our chat the other day that Sarah was laughing at me about, thinking I had come up with a new acronym because I just in a hurry and just got my fingers on the wrong key and just went on. So that's part of why it's like that. You also might have a case where the person does have two user IDs, and we need to select which user ID we want to keep, right? So that's why you have the option to go in and confirm what you're going to keep and what you're going to let overwrite. Go
Okay,
ahead,
so
Sarah.
Actually, yeah, can I chime in a little bit more to elaborate?
Yes.
Because like that last part you said, I think is such a great and common example. Is that if somebody, does something where they accidentally create a duplicate contact for themselves, um, often, especially if they didn't want to create a duplicate user, like a duplicate login, it's because they do have a user already, and often that'll be the one that they did know about. They just didn't use it this time. You might want to keep their original user, not the new one they just created. But all else being equal, often whatever information they entered most recently is going to be correct, right? So if they entered a different address, that's probably going to be their new address. So even if their old contact has an address, you might want the most recent address to overwrite the old one. But you still might want to keep their original user, their original login. So depending on the situation, but that's to my mind, that's a great example of it's very common to have a mix of some of the old fields are right and some of the new fields are right.
This is Sarah, by the way. She didn't introduce herself, but
Sorry, I
she's
didn't.
our what's your title? Your title's Chief Strategic Officer?
Strategy officer. Yeah,
Strategy Officer. Ah,
yeah.
I was in the
You got
ballpark.
it. You got it.
But what's really good
Yeah,
is I
thanks for
think most of the
remembering I didn't
time
do interest.
I think most of the time between me and Sarah, we explain things differently and we overlap just enough that we can probably explain it to a lot of people. So I was really glad Sarah jumped on the call this morning or this evening for most of you. I'm
Thanks.
sorry.
Yeah, thanks.
just to continue, when
Yes.
the contacts will be merged, you said something about the duplicate would be trash, but since we merge information, I'm not losing information, right? So like the profile is like done and used and it's gonna be trash. So in my logging, I would have only one Robert Armstrong while at this address and whatever, and that's about it, right?
Correct. In Civi, you can go and search for things that are in the trash. So that's why I mentioned that because I've seen that before where we'll accidentally not I've seen a client accidentally put something, a contact in the trash, and then we go and dig it out because we're like, oh, yeah, you didn't mean to do that. That was an accident. So that's why I said that. It does go into the trash. So you can search when you go into your advanced search, you have an option to search for contacts in the trash. But so in this case, that's what happens to in this particular example, the way we're showing it here, that's what would happen to Robert. Robert would be in trash. Bob would be the one that's in your system. So that if you did a search after doing this merge, you would just see Bob. You wouldn't see Robert anymore. And if you ran the rules again, you would only see the two that match with Annie because, well, you'd only see one anymore that matched with Annie because of the address that being the same. Okay. We kind of went to the last part of this, and that was the any questions or that anyone had. I did want to also just share this, which actually Brian had put together for another training that he had done that just kind of where you can find more information. So in this case, we have Drupal.org. It's the Drupal website, docs.civicrm.org, chat.civicrm.org, CiviCRM and always square.com/blog and square.com/training, which I guess is how you all found this. But hey, look at that. 4 minutes. 4 minutes. I like it when we time things out right. So, any other questions that anyone has? Y'all are a quiet bunch, I must say.
Well, I would have question, but I don't know if it's like for everyone. I'm quite new on CiviCRM in my organization, and I'm trying to like demystify the whole thing and make sure that people don't feel like the anger character from Inside Out whenever they're using it. So that's my job right now.
I you have our sympathy, Mariska. We deal with that quite a bit, and we talk to people in organizations who are ready to pull their hair out. Uh, one thing I can suggest is, if at all possible, is going in and changing what menu items they see. And because you can limit the menu items that are there, and sometimes that helps when you just kind of eliminate the choice, right? It's the paradox of choice situation. There's too much sometimes to choose from in Civi for people who are new sometimes. And of course, I think Sarah and Brian would both chime in with the exact same sentiment. Our goal is fewer people in Civi, the better, because they're less likely to make mistakes, and it can that's where kind of your conflict comes in, is when you have a whole bunch of your staff getting into Civi and trying to figure it out.
I take the what you said it with a personally I would put a little twist on it, which is just going back to the navigation options that you were recommending too, is making sure that people don't have more permissions than they need, right? So a lot of people, if a lot of people on the team need to be able to get in, see data, work with data, but make sure that they can't do things that they don't need to do. And that's actually also usually I've found that most users are really happy in those cases to have some of their permissions dialed back, right? Like people don't want the ability to break stuff. And if they know, like, you've turned off my ability to break things, then they're often happier. So that can be a good way to make it easier.
Exactly. Thank you, Sarah, clarifying my ramblings in that moment. All right. Well, we are, according to my Mickey, we are 1 minute until the hour, which puts us just on time. I want to thank everyone for coming from all over, it seems like, from quite an international flavor today. I really enjoyed that. And I also want to thank Brian and Sarah for jumping on and having my back on this call today. Again, we are with Square.com. Anytime, feel free to jump on some more training, read through the blog, and we'd love to see you again in our next training. And I don't know, Brian, Sarah, anything else y'all want to add to that?
I just want to say Neil put in some more links here. He mentioned CiviCRM Mattermost, which is a good resource. It's like a Slack, like an online chat thing. You can talk to people in the community and ask general questions. Like I think that's a really good resource there. And then he also put the link to the Academy here. It's another good resource. So thank you for all those helpful tips, Neil. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I've
I'm
been watching them too.
fulfilling one of my roles as a community council member, and longtime Civi person. Thank you. And thank you for all you guys are doing. It's really wonderful. I'm touring all these virtual events, and it's great to see what you guys are putting together now.
Well, we're very happy you were here today. That's nice to have. That's a little more backup there. I always need backup. So everybody needs backup in whatever they're doing, though, right? So, okay. Well, thank you all for attending today. And we hope to see you in another training session down the road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Bye
much.
now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Hi.
you.
Mark, can I ask you a question before you leaving, please?
Sure. I'll try to answer.
Yeah. Well, here the CVCRM is really more like a contact, like a database for contacts, and we have a lot of projects with partners and whatever. And I was trying to understand if there could be a smart group but with contacts that are not members, because since we are a nonprofit, we do receive like money from members annually, and
Absolutely.
I would like to know if I could like create a smart group with partners and without the contribution part, if my English is clear.
All you need to know to do that is what is the common thread of all of those contact records, and then go into your advanced search, do the advanced search of whatever that common thread is. And once you have that list, go in and create your smart group from it. And you know how to do that?
I can learn too. I can learn too. I'm really new in my organization, so I'm just trying to like make a good cleaning of the CVCRM, and there's a law over here that protects the information, the personal information, right? So like if I could keep for one project the contact info for like I don't know a year or like 6 months, and after like the project would be trash and like put elsewhere, that would be like really nice and less messy to manage.
I got to tell you, Mariska, you're the type of person that I really enjoy working with, because you want to clean that database up. So I popped over to that demo site that where everything came from, and earlier I was telling you how I usually have this on all of my client sites, where it's just my email address with the percentage and at square.com, and then I do a search. So that's the parameter that I'm looking for in this particular case. And you can see it returns me, it returns Core, it returns Alex. So then I can select all of them, and then I can go here and I'll do create a smart group. And after I do that, I usually call these MAs test users. So we'll just be specific on here. And usually I'm better at this. No, don't need that. Okay. In this
Okay,
case, this is not. Go ahead.
I was asking like now it's like really easy to create a smart group, but like can I disable that smart group, say, hey, this smart group will be alive for like this duration of time, and then after it can kill itself, right? Can I do that?
It won't kill itself, but after I create this smart group, let's just let it create. So we'll go to our smart groups, we'll go to our groups. I don't have many on here because it's just a demo site. So you can see I created it right there. So I can delete it from right there when I want to. There is
Yeah.
also an extension. Oh, Sarah left the call. She would know the name of it off the top of her head. There's an extension. I cannot remember the name of it. Brian, if you know the name of it, chime in. That will tell you the last time a mailing group was used.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Mm,
You know, you know that one, Brian. Okay, so there is
mm-mm.
a really good extension that you can add that will tell you the last time that a mailing group was used, and when you add that to your site, you get a dashboard where you can go in and you can see when was the last time this mailing group was used, and you could use that also as a way to help you clean up those.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I'm not familiar with a way that will automatically clean them out for you.
Okay. And the other thing that I've noticed is like there's the contribution and there's the membership. And I noticed like one of my past colleagues, she would add contribution for other organizations that are members from for hours, and they would pay the contribution, but when you add the contribution it doesn't link to a membership, and since it's not linked to a membership, while my smart group of active members, membership owners, active membership owners wouldn't link. So when I was trying, like there was a in Asia, there was like the annual meeting for all the members, and I was trying to see who was actually a member of our organization, and it wouldn't show up because every manual contribution that was in my database wasn't linked to the smart group, and I had like to manually clean everything up. So yeah, I was trying to like, is there a link that's missing between contribution and membership, or it's always like that and it's meant to be like that?
It is not meant to be like that. And you know what? I think this probably is it because I see Sunil's the maintainer.
Yeah, that
This
was
is
the thing
probably
that's jumped out to me.
that's the hint right there. So Mariska, I think this is the extension I was talking about. Sunil, he's one of our developers, so that's why Brian found that one that I was talking about. And did he make it so it will disable on its own?
That's what it
Oh,
was
he did.
sounding
You can set
like.
a date to disable. I didn't even know he had done that. So yeah,
A date to
he's
disable
improved that.
what? The group in advance. Okay, great.
Yes, he's added to it since I was became familiar with it. Okay, nice. Good to know. So
And
this is the one that I was talking about. Um, no, when a user creates when the membership's created the right way, it'll create a contribution record and the membership at the same time.
yeah,
So if you have a case where you have that connection's not there, that means that they just took a contribution. They didn't create the membership while they were doing it. They didn't set it up to do that. So my thought, and Brian, if you have another thought, all ears. My thought is just go in and manually create those memberships, but I don't know how many you're talking about. And of course, you can create the membership at a $0 so that you're not creating a contribution record that'll mess with your accounting. If that's, that you don't, I'm assuming that you're using that in your system. I know most of our clients are concerned about that. So just do a $0 contribution for the membership, or even create a $0 membership just to get it cleaned up, and then just from there forward, either you are the one who does it, or you smack people's hands if they do it the wrong way, right?
well,
Um,
both are true and both are gonna happen.
I like that. That's the way to do it. Yeah. Because I cannot think of an example where in any site that I've worked on, a Square site, one of the sites that we work on where we have memberships being created and not doing the contribution record at the same time. That's bad. That's not a good thing, I would say. Brian, did you have some thoughts on it?
Well, I just put it unrelated to that. I just put this recalculate recipients extension in here too, which I think is good to have. As far as the membership, I like the $0 idea. I think that could work. Um, Let's recalculate recipients real quick though. So if you have smart groups, this is something that I recently learned. So let's say that you are one of those people that create a lot of bulk mailings at one time. Maybe you're doing like a drip campaign or something like that, where you just like at the beginning of the month, I'm going to schedule all the mailings for the rest of the month. If you use a smart group, when you submit the mailing, CiviCRM kind of like freezes that mailing list when you submit the mailing. So if you have new people join or get added to the smart group later, they're not going to be in the mailing that you scheduled before they joined. So this extension, right before the mailing goes out, it recalculates the recipients in the smart group. So if more people have been added to the smart group since you submitted the mailing or scheduled the mailing, then they'll get added right before it goes out.
Okay. And I have like another quick question if I can take a little bit more of your time. Um, I was wondering like there's another organization over here that is a member to ours, and she has an account under her name, and the organization has an account under the organization's name. But when she does the what's it called, the contribution for a membership, she goes under her profile that is linked into her organization, and that's where I'm kind of lost, because why can't she go under the profile of her organization and pay the membership through there? And then I kind of lost the money because it was linked to her name and not
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
organization.
This right here, this on behalf of organization profile, that's what you're going to need,
Okay.
because you're going to need to set it up so that your contribution uses this profile for her to do the contribution, so that she's doing it on behalf of the organization, but she's the one doing it.
And that's whether or not there's a relationship between her and the organization.
Mark,
Yes,
pull
you
up a
can.
contribution form and show that checkbox on the profile where you select that profile.
Yeah, so anybody can do a contribution on any. Oh, I don't have one in here, do I?
Well, you can see the checkbox there.
Ah, well, I thought
Allow
I had a test.
individuals to contribute on behalf of the organization or something like that.
Yeah, you got to
So
select
this is
the.
like a default
Here we
setting,
go.
or it's
Let's
because
see.
there needs to be a link beforehand between her and her organization that she can make a contribution on behalf of. Yes, no, maybe.
So you can add in your profile, you can add fields for the organization. So you can create that relationship too, right? When you're filling out the form, Mark. If I
Yeah.
have the organization profile in here, not connected yet, I fill it out, then you get the organization contact created, the relationship created, and then the contribution goes on the organization.
So this is actually this is a default sample form in Civi, and you can see it's a donation form. It allows individuals to. This was with the checkbox we were talking about, and we're using that on behalf of organization. So if I go to, yeah, I'll do it. If I go in here, of course, I'm already logged in as me, so you see it knows me. It knows I'm here, and then here I can select the organization. There we go. Oh, I probably don't have anybody that I can use for
Well, it
this.
doesn't matter, like I understand, but when
Yeah.
if you do a contribution under an organization's name, well, when I go towards your profile, when like next to contribution, it would still write 0, right?
It'll do a
But
soft credit, won't it, Brian?
I think you have to set that up. Yeah, soft credits would be a good way to do it. So you can, I think in Core, you can edit any contribution record and set a soft credit to another one. There's also an extension called automatic soft credits that you can
okay.
install and configure. So you could do something like um, contributions get logged on the organization and then automatically soft credit any individual with the employee of relationship, like you usually set it on the relationship type. Then that way, when you go to the employee, you would see, I don't know that it would have, it might still say 0 since it's a soft credit and not a real contribution. But when you click on the contribution tab, you'll be able to see all the individual soft credits and total amount and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
because the what matters is the contribution of the organization, right? Because there's different membership prices for individual and organization. So I
Mhm.
don't care that Anne didn't make her contribution. I care that her organization, which is AF2R, I want the membership of AF2R and not Anne's, right? So if she makes a contribution for AF2R, well, next to AF2R there would be a 1, and next to Anne it would be 0, which is correct, and this is what we want.
Right. The reason why you might want to look at the soft credits though is going back to who are your donors. Because a donor could make a contribution on behalf of an organization, but you like to know who those donors are because that's the people you want to email. Now, I know
So
in this
yeah,
particular
that I kind
scenario,
of
it's
do
the
it the
same.
opposite way. Like I have an organization that uses households, and it's a similar setup. Instead of a household organization, it's a household, right? So we have individuals making contributions, but then we apply a soft credit to the household. Then when I go to the household, I can see like a total that any individual related to the household has made.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mariska. I think we threw too much at you, didn't we?
No, well, this whole project and the whole database is like kind of too much, but I have the whole summer to clean it up, so it's fine. Also, since there wasn't a training last week or the week prior to that with Jenna, I think that was the training that I really needed to get started. So I will try to contact her again, and if Mark, you can send in a good word for me, that would be swell.
We'll give her a nudge.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I think the key thing is, like Mark said, figure out who you want your donor record to be, if it's the organization or the individual, because there's benefits either way. And then if you want it to be on the organization, check that on behalf of organization checkbox on any contribution page that you have. And then that'll get them started storing there. I would check out the automatic soft credits. Either way, either direction you go, that would probably be a good extension to have, whether you want your soft credits on your individual or your organization, either way. So I would check those out.
Okay. From a technical point of view, this meeting was recorded. Would it be available at some place
Yes,
afterwards?
I think we'll upload it to like YouTube and send out emails with links.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you. I see only two left. But thank you, Mariska,
Thank you
for
so much, Mark.
being our asker of questions. Nobody else wanted to ask questions, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, we're all
And
here to
Anna,
work,
I hope you're
right?
having fun with the kids if you can still hear us. So thank you again, and hope we'll see you again in the future.
Great. Have a nice afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.